Number 67 is the sequel, and we are going to be looking at the state of the church by 1905, going on to 6. In this sequel, we shall also visit the final preparations of Budo King School and Gayaza Girls School towards opening, and some evangelical work within the Diocese of Uganda. Welcome. I'm Christopher Amos Chikomeko Ntambi. In these celebrations of the Church of Uganda at 150 years, celebrating our history and the state, they're going in a parallel line, side by side. The 29-year-old priest who was still a bachelor, the Reverend Leonard Kiching, the first missionary in northern Uganda, was transferred in 1905 to Ngora. The reason was that the Church Missionary Society decided to develop Ngora as the major mission station in northern Uganda rather than Patigo. The truth is, Ngora was more of the east than north. And so the Reverend Leonard Kiching was moved 1905. Similarly, the Reverend Jamison Willis, who was aged 32 and was also still a bachelor, no wife, was transferred from the Entebbe Chapel to the Kavirondo mission based at Miragori Church Missionary Society among the Bajaru or the Luos of Kenya. The Church Missionary Society, even by 1905, had not yet recognized the colonial borders, even if at that time Kavirondo had moved to British East Africa, or call it Kenya. But Kavirondo, as far as the church was concerned, remained under the Church Missionary Society of Uganda Diocese. Why? Because even Mombasa Diocese was Church Missionary Society. So the same missionaries ran Uganda and ran Kenya. So there was no reason why they would move away Kavirondo, at least by then. The Reverend Willis was a very hardworking young man. And he saw it to that the Bajaruo area grew in faith and the church developmental-wise. For example, the Muzungu learned Jaluo. And in fact, the two men who taught Willis how to speak Jaluo were called Orao and Anubi at the Maseno Church Missionary Society station, which they had begun by 1906. So that is Willis for you. He came from that far. For those of you who simply knew him in history as a bishop, the man was here grounded, Ankole, Entebbe, now Bajaruo, Kavirondo. Now, in the state of the church, remember the industrial station or the industrial mission at Mviri Bulange had a big printing machine, and the government of Uganda was using it to publish its own things. But now the Church of Uganda, or the Church Missionary Society, or the Mengo Protestant Church lost business. Why? Because the Uganda Notes production left the industrial mission and now began to be printed by Uganda Company. I told you that after Sapro Kagwa returned, this Uganda Company was created to try and copy what he had seen in England. Huge factories where women worked, so many people working there. So the Uganda Company was opened. In 1902, the very year he came back to Uganda. And they even brought printing machines. Now, it also grew in size. I'm talking of the Uganda Notes newspaper. It grew to almost 20 pages. Remember, it began as a 4-page thing. Interestingly, although it was a missionary paper, neither the bishop No, the Church Missionary Society were responsible for it. It had an independent board which ran it. Then something interesting in March 1905 happened. It was a baptism. One Mr. Seruwaji Namukadde was baptized on the 26th of March 1905 by a priest called Flahate, the Reverend Flahate. Who is this Seruwaji Namukadde who we are celebrating? He's one of the three natives of Uganda who first visited Great Britain they left here in 1879 and they arrived there in 1880, and they had a letter to deliver to Queen Victoria, and Queen Victoria received them in her palace. Artist impressions are all over the world showing them being received by the Queen Victoria. So this Seruwaji Namukadde was the most senior one, but a servant of Maokota County Chief. Also present at the palace in Britain was another Kataluba being a servant of Bulemezi County Chief. And finally there was Sabadu Magijo, a servant of the County Chief of Singo. So all these were commoners. Yeah, they were servants, they were commoners. Now they returned in March 1881, and they had a lot to say, which we've already seen in the earlier sequels. However, what is important now is one of them, Seruwaji Namukadde, who was the most senior, gets baptized on the 26th of March 1905, and he gets the name Philip. So now he's officially Philip Seruwaji Namukadde. We should thank the Lord for the winning of that soul. And now, in the same year, 1905, we now want to look at the education sector, the state of the education sector in Buganda, 1905. Now, as Budo's school construction reached its final stages, pressure from Mengo Central School was overwhelming. The outgrown boys had to leave. Yeah. And so they could not wait for Budo official opening. The boys had to be transferred to Budo earlier. A building was set apart and transformed into a senior boys wing. And on the 25th of January 1905, that particular wing was officially opened, and the Mengo boys enjoyed moving in there. Now, the headmaster of Mengo Central School, the Reverend W.B. Gill, was in charge at the school at Budo. Yeah, the school they had opened at Budo. It was not yet officially opened, but because the boys had been put there, so he the very same headmaster was put in charge there. And they began to perform art performances for future public shows. Then they had other senior courses as grown-up men, preparing concerts for parents, and they would perform before them, and then they would also be prepared to be clerks and administrators. So all that became senior courses once they were taken to Budo. Now, there was also pressure at Gayaza, thanks to the Church Missionary Society Women's Conference of 1903. This school, the Gayaza Girls Central School, had to be open, and it was actually open in 1905, and the headmistress there was Madame Allen, A.L. Allen. Now, this was on land which had been donated by Katikiro Aprokagwa. And for them, their curriculum was very interesting. Cultivation, handwork, reading, writing, arithmetic, geography. Now, it remained a junior school, I think, till 1940, when it started its junior secondary section. That's why you see that big girls had no alternative, but they had to be taken later on, as we shall see in future sequels. They had to go to Budo for their junior secondary school. However, that will be addressed in future sequels. Now, in April 1905, a Mzungu called John Ramsey arrived in Uganda. He arrived on the 17th of April 1905. He was 30 years old. His special duty was to conduct classes for the future Kabaka of Buganda, Daudi Chwa II, who was 8 years old. Why do I call him future Kabaka? Because by 1905, he had not yet covered the body of his father with a back cloth, which is the act of accession to the throne of Buganda. A prince covers the body of his dad, who is dead dad, and that is the act of accession to the Buganda throne. So that had not yet happened. That's why I keep referring to him as the future Kabaka of Buganda. By 1905, Daudi Chwa II. He was 8 years old, and they now get him a private tutor, a private English tutor, Mr. John Ramsey. He arrives in the country in April 1905. However, Starrock's story is interesting. He was born in India by British parents. So they gave him a British education. He graduated at Oxford in 1898, and he was appointed by the Colonial Office to tutor the future Kabaka of Buganda by molding the young prince into a great, for example, sportsman as well. Yeah, Chwa was a great sportsman, for those of you who didn't know. And so for tonight, this particular sequel number 67 will stop here. May the good Lord bless us all.